So in my first episode of the MVP candidates, I mentioned that I wouldn't be doing an episode on Nikola Jokic because I didn't consider him a serious candidate for MVP. And while I made some good points as to why Jokic wouldn't likely win MVP, he has a really good narrative and he's playing insanely well this season. So here is actually my final episode of MVP candidates with Nikola Jokic. So Jokic is the heart and soul of the Denver Nuggets, and without him, I believe the Nuggets would be one of the worst teams in the league. But fortunately for the Nuggets, they do have Jokic. And I don't think it's an overstatement to say that Jokic is already the best passing big man of all time, and it's not even close. We have never really seen a player like Jokic before, and he's absolutely one of a kind. He's probably the least athletic looking centre in the league, and although I can't find any records of his vertical leap, I doubt it's more than 12 inches. But despite his lack of athleticism, it doesn't actually hinder him that much, as on defence he's still a solid defender and certainly above average. He doesn't get big blocks and it doesn't look particularly impressive, but as long as he doesn't have to guard quick guards out on the perimeter, he can hold his own. And his post defence is good too, as all 280 pounds of Jokic certainly comes in handy here, because moving Jokic out of the way is no easy task. Another area of Jokic's game that I find surprisingly good is his rebounding, and he's averaging over 10 a game so far this season. Even though he can't jump very high, he's great at boxing out and will very rarely let his man grab an offensive rebound. And his IQ when boxing out is impeccable, as he always seems to know exactly where to position himself to grab the board. And when Jokic gets the defensive rebound, it just unlocks the offense. Much like LeBron, Jokic is immediately looking for an outlet pass, and with how accurate Jokic can pass the ball, it leads to a lot of buckets. And even though Jokic is very slow and one of the slowest players in the league, he's great at bringing the ball up the court and he often plays like a point guard. And something amazing too is that the Nuggets will often run the pick and roll, but with Jokic as the ball handler instead of the screener. Because Jokic is one of the best passers in the league and he really looks like a guard trapped inside of a center's body. But even when Jokic is the screener, he's great at this too, as he draws so much attention from the defense and he's a great finisher around the basket and from the 3-point line. His float game is also some of the best in the NBA, and it's a shot he's clearly worked on a lot and he's well on his way to mastering it. Then you get on to his post game, which is another great area for Jokic. And it doesn't often look pretty, but he can back down his man and finish competently with either hand. He's got an arsenal of post moves he can use too, and he makes full use of pump fakes, which defenders fall for time and time again. But we can't talk about Jokic without talking about the Sombor shuffle. It's somewhat like Dirk Nowitzki's fadeaway, but somehow it's even more unconventional. Despite his form though, Jokic makes them time and time again, and it really is an unblockable shot. But Jokic is an outside threat too, with him shooting over 42% from free so far this season, which puts him right up there with elite 3-point shooters. Something I can't help but think with Jokic though is how much better he would be if he was in better shape and he was a bit more muscular. Because it wouldn't take away from any of his strengths, and hopefully this is a development we can see Jokic make sooner rather than later. Because just imagine Jokic's current skill set, but in the body of Joel Embiid and with Embiid's athleticism, he'd be one of the best players to ever play the game. But then again, we should just be grateful for the level that Jokic is at already. But now let's talk about Jokic in the MVP race, and my biggest concern as to why he won't win MVP. And it's simply because of the low seed that the Nuggets are in. Because they are currently in the 7th seed in the West, which doesn't reflect how great Jokic is playing. But the Warriors are in the 8th seed with Steph Curry, and I think he's a strong MVP candidate, so I have to have Jokic as a candidate too. As well, I don't actually think the Nuggets will finish at the 7th seed, and I think they could go quite a bit higher. And now I do think it's unlikely the Nuggets will get to the 3rd seed which they were at last season, but if they play as well as I know they can, I could see them getting to the 4th seed. But reaching the 4th seed in the West this year is going to be really tough. I realistically see them finishing at the 5th seed, with the Lakers and the Clippers taking the 1 and 2 seed, and then the Utah Jazz and the Phoenix Suns being 3 and 4. Even if the Nuggets get to the 4th seed though, I still don't think that warrants Jokic being the MVP. Because the last time that someone won MVP without finishing top 3 in their conference, you have to go all the way back to 1982. And this is when Moses Malone won the MVP with the Houston Rockets and they finished just 6th seed. And in this time period, only one player won it, finishing 3rd in their conference, and it was Michael Jordan. In fact, 77% of the time when a player has won MVP in this time period, it's finishing number 1 in their conference. So even if Jokic and the Nuggets can get to 3rd seed in the Western Conference, which would be incredible, it would still be an upset for him to win MVP. So even if the Nuggets somehow get to the first or second seed, then by all means Jokic can have the MVP, but even the third seed would be out of the ordinary. So like I said, I think the Nuggets will realistically finish at 5th seed in the West, and then for Jokic's MVP ranking, I think he will finish top 6 actually and push out one of my original candidates, and we're going to put him right at number 6. But what do you think about Jokic for MVP, as he is a really popular candidate right now, and I think a lot of people have him in their top 3. And so just leave your thoughts down below on Jokic, and as well if you've got any video ideas you can leave them too, and then without further ado, thank you so much for watching and I'll see you on my next video.